favorite co-host, but we do have the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi, Mr. International, just getting back from Italy, does commentating for Sky Sports, Showtime, everyone's favorite analyst, and we definitely are lucky to have him on the show to get some breakdowns. Paulie, Magic Man, Malignaggi, how are you? And thank you once again for taking out the time to interview here on the Boxing Voice and giving us this opportunity.
You're welcome, guys. How are you?
Good, man. Excited. Fight week. Wilder. Go ahead. Mike has something. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just want to know what I'm saying. Let's take it by a progression. You know what I'm saying? We didn't talk to Paul in a while. There's been some fights that happened. The most notable fight that happened, you know what I'm saying, the biggest fight that happened, we were kind of there for, Canelo versus Kovalev. What was your reaction to that fight? And is Canelo like the best fighter in boxing now?
I think Canelo's in the conversation. I'm not quite sure though that there's a correct answer to the best fighter in boxing. You know what's funny is Canelo might be one of the best fighters in boxing, or might be, you can even consider him, in the argument to be the best fighter in boxing. Yet you can also have the same kind of argument and say he's not even the best middleweight in the world. That's how competitive boxing is right now, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and I think the debate can rage on and on between fans, and I think as long as boxing is being talked about like that and it's in the discussion, it makes it exciting, because that means there are a lot of good fighters in boxing at the moment.
Were you
now the other part to your question, my bad, is what did I think about the fight? I thought Kovalev kind of old manned it, like they say in England. What I mean by that is he's tried to kind of slow the pace down and make it a comfortable pace for himself, using some veteran tactics. And he tried to see if he could bait Canelo away from him in that way. And I thought it was working decently well. It made for a very non-exciting fight, but at the same time, he's there to try to be effective first and then exciting after that. So, and as the old guy, he kind of was very, he was very shrewd in doing the way he was doing that. But of course, Canelo was able to catch up to him and get him late. But I wasn't so sure Canelo was up in the fight. But having said that, it's a very, 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 very credible win nonetheless.
Does that make him pound for pound number one in terms of pound for pound lists?
And again, like I said, I think these pound for pound lists and the best fighter in boxing kind of arguments are very subjective, and I think if you consider him the best pound for pound fighter in the world, I don't think there's an argument to be made against him, but then, or not to say that there's not an argument to be made, but I'm going to say there's not like I can't argue with you definitively and say, no, you're definitely wrong. I can't say you're definitely right, but you're definitely not wrong either. It's very subjective in that regard, especially right now. But like I said, you can make the same kind of argument and say he's not even the best middleweight in the world, and I think you have a very good argument to say that too, but again, that's just how competitive boxing is. That's all.
Were you surprised that he got the stoppage? Because we seen him in there with Andre Ward. He couldn't stop him like Canelo did. I don't think even Alvarez stopped him like that.
Yeah, you have to understand this is a different kind of Kovalev too. We have to keep in mind the aging process too, and the aging process was also part of the reasoning why Canelo took the calculated risk to take the shot at the heavyweight champion. But nonetheless, he gets credit for it. He's the smaller man. He goes up in weight and he gets the job done. But of course, all of these risks are always calculated risks. They have to be. You can't just go up and face the best guy in every weight class as you move up the weight classes. It's not very feasible to do that, and you're gonna get yourself beat unless you have extra help. So I think it was a calculated risk, but I think obviously looking back, it was the right risk. It panned out for him, and he was able to get the stoppage. But I also think the stoppage was also part of the reasoning for the stoppage was that Kovalev was a bit older and a bit long in the tooth, but nonetheless, that's not a reason to discredit Canelo for the result either.
Joseph?
If not, I got something else.
All right. Well, go ahead, Mike.
Now the WBC adapted WADA's clenbuterol elevated levels. What do you make of the WBC doing that? And yeah, yeah.
I don't really know, man. At this, I don't know what to make of it anymore. To be honest with you. I guess that means you're allowed to, to monitor you monitor your doping levels and do what you can do. I don't know. To tell you the truth, I'm not that much of an expert on the situation, but I don't think doping should be tolerated in any sense, because if you allow even the most minimal amounts, these fighters, these super fighters that are making a lot of money will have the doctors, can afford the doctors that can monitor their levels every day. You know what I'm saying? And make sure they're doping, but keeping it under the allowable limit. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of unfair because the guy with money can now dope in a quote unquote proper way because he can afford to have the doctors there every day and monitor his levels. While the guy who doesn't have that kind of money to have doctors there every day, he's gotta be careful he doesn't go over the limit and then get himself busted. So I don't agree with that. I get why they're doing that, and I'm hoping and assuming they mean well, but I don't really know.
Were you able to watch the Wilder Ortiz, and what did you make of Wilder's performance? And is he the hardest puncher that you ever seen in professional boxing?
He might be. I mean, Julian Jackson was up there, but Wilder's in the conversation as well. It's kind of wild. But Beterbiev is obviously one of the.
You got to bring up Jerry McClellan. You know what I'm saying? Like he knocked out Julian Jackson twice.
Yeah, McClellan, but I think Jackson was a bit harder puncher than McClellan was. Not to say that, at that point, I don't think you want to get it with any of them. They were all very monster punchers, but I think the way Jackson would just touch you and you'd be gone was a bit different than McClellan. McClellan was also high power, high octane, and I think if he hurt you, you were gone too. But Jackson was the kind of guy that he didn't hurt you; he put you to sleep with the one shot constantly, And so that's why I mentioned Jackson ahead of McClellan. But I think it's obviously the history tells us that McClellan was a better fighter. But we're talking about pound for pound power hitting shots, one punch, one hit a quitter type shots. And I think we have Jackson in the conversation. I think we have Wilder for sure in the conversation. And I don't know. I don't think Beterbiev gets enough credit for his power today either. I don't think enough guys talk about him, but he's knocking out people and he's knocking out pretty good fighters too. But nonetheless, it's you can have this is another one of those debates that you can just constantly have. And I don't think you have a right or wrong answer, and it's kind of fun to have because you can kind of go back and forth and kind of discuss power hitters like this, But I thought Wilder's performance was a disciplined performance, but I think he needs to be disciplined in a manner where he can win rounds too, And what I mean by disciplined is his positioning was not all over the place like it sometimes winds up being as the rounds progress. I think as rounds progress with Wilder, we wind up seeing a round or two here and there where he's all over the place and he kind of got to get himself together. Not to necessarily say that he gets hurt, but he's kind of slipping punches in weird, awkward ways, and he's going off balance and he's flailing. I think we saw a more composed Wilder this time. So you can kind of see the improvements, and you can kind of see he's kind of falling into his own identity in the kind of fighter that he is. I just want to see him be able to add the ability to win rounds to this. His positioning is certainly a better position, a better sense of positioning, a more disciplined sense of positioning. I just want to see him be able to win rounds now. Because it's one thing to not be able to win rounds against Ortiz, who's actually just a shorter guy, but of course being a southpaw nonetheless, it makes him a bit awkward. But Tyson Fury's jab is just wicked. It's wicked. So if you can't put yourself, and it's the kind of jab that actually will eliminate your positioning. It will ruin your positioning, even if you're a very disciplined position type of fighter. Fury's jab is the kind of jab that wrecks your positioning consistently. And Wilder is very much based on his proper positioning to let go of the right hand from the distance he wants, and to get the leverage on it that he wants. So while I think Wilder is a force to be reckoned with, I still want to see these improvements for the Fury fight. The thing about the Fury fight is, for me, I don't think there's a question. These guys are both 1 and 2 in the heavyweight division right now. I don't think there's a question. Fury and Wilder, for me, without doubt, are the one or two heavyweights in the world, regardless of how you see it. But nonetheless, I think the adjustments have to be made more from Wilder's side than Fury's side, although both do need to make some adjustments.
Did Wilder's opposition after the Fury fight hurt him or help him, right? And same thing for Fury. Was it good for them to go into Brazil and Ortiz and Schwartz and Wallin?
I don't think it hurt them. Honestly, I don't think it hurt them. I think it kind of sells the fight a little bit more. Fury, I kind of can't fault Fury because I felt like he got robbed in the fight, and I think most people felt he got robbed in the first fight. So he had to find a way to go protect himself. And in order to protect him, he had to go sign with a big name promoter and say, so if the rematch happens again, he has the protection of a big name promoter so that this doesn't happen to him again, the result that happened in the first fight. Because if he just kind of walked into the rematch immediately right after, he's walking in to the Lion's Den again. You know, he's the B side. He's not with the house promoter and all of that good stuff. You know, obviously as the challenger, you're always the B side. But what I'm saying is now with a big name promoter, you're kind of making it more of a co-promotion than you are the champion versus just a good challenger. You know, now it's more of a co-promotion where the big guns are not only inside the ring in terms of Fury and Wilder, but also the big guns are playing each other, playing chess outside the ring in terms of Top Rank and PBC, you know? So I think Fury kind of had no choice once that result came, that he had to protect himself with the outside the ring business as well. But I don't think it hurts them in the end because they've both won since then. Fury kind of does what he does. He doesn't really look great against subpar opposition. He kind of lowers himself to the level of opposition that he fights. But then we see every time he raises the level of opposition, he's a force to be reckoned with, you know? And Wilder does what he does as well. If you're not on his level, you're going to sleep. And that's what guys do, you know? So I think it just made people salivate for the fight more. I think it's going to be a good sell. And in the end, all's well that ends well. And they're both undefeated going into the rematch.
Hey, Paulie, this is Joseph Rodriguez here. My question for you is: you were one of the people I heard mention the height of Fury maybe being a problem for Wilder in the first fight, as opposed to him normally punching down, he was punching upward. That could affect the power. Is that something you still think? Because I noticed in the first fight when he was able to drop Fury, it was when Fury was kind of crouching down. So do you think that did have an effect, and will it have an effect towards the rematch?
Well, I think that's just science in general. I think it's just anytime you're punching down, you're getting more leverage on your shots, you know? So I think that's just science in general. But I think that the height of Fury more so bothers Wilder because Fury's height is combined with a very, very rhythmic jab. You know, he changes speed on it, he changes rhythm with it, and his body language is hard to time, you know? So I think the height combined with the jab is really what prevents Wilder from being the fighter that he wants to be. And that's where the adjustments have to be made from Wilder. Wilder is usually the guy dictating with the left hand. We saw in the Ortiz fight, he may not have been winning the rounds, but he was still very comfortable setting his distances, and he was never in trouble despite probably losing most of the rounds, if not all the rounds, you know? So you're always in trouble with a guy like Wilder, even if you're not putting him in a position to panic. And Ortiz, although was winning the fight, never really had Wilder in a position to panic. So Deontay, now who is a veteran and is not only a good fighter, but he's a veteran, was able to keep calm the whole way. And honestly, from his body language, if you look at Wilder's body language in that fight, it's like he felt he was going to win the whole time. I mean, I never saw a sense of panic in Wilder the entire fight, despite me feeling like he was losing the majority, if not all those rounds. And to me, that's a confident fighter, not only in his power, but also in his ability to set up his power. But again, the Fury fight, it's not just the height that's going to be a problem. It's the height combined with the jab, because that is a rhythm breaker. That is a rhythm breaker, and that is a disruptor. And Wilder doesn't like to be disrupted when it comes to setting up his jabs and right hands, you know, because that's obviously how he plans to get you out of there, and how he plans on, you know, even taking advantage in the fight in general.
Now, you are a part of the Showtime broadcast team. Have you guys heard any input on your guys' interest on being a part of the co-promotion of the rematch? Brian Custer came on and told us that it would be a pretty big battle between Fox and Showtime to pick up the other half of that fight. What is there any knowledge that says how much interest you guys have over at Showtime?
I don't know. I mean, I know for sure Steven Espinoza. I've heard him mention it plenty of times that he'd love to have the fight, and he's got a tremendous amount of interest in getting it, and he'll make his play. I stay out of that business side of it. Like I'm tired of dealing with business. I had a boxing career already where I was fighting tooth and nail in the business side of it. So whatever we wind up with, we wind up with. I don't think it changes the fact that it's going to be a great fight, but I do have a bias towards my team. Obviously, I think the Showtime team is the best commentating team in boxing, and I say that not just because I'm a part of it, because I really genuinely feel we are the best commentating team in boxing. But nonetheless, there's a play to be made for the fight, and whoever gets it, and I'll just stand by and see what happens with it.
Before you run out of time, let me just try and take over a little bit slightly. We are talking live. We spoke with Bob Arum. We spoke with Ken Porter about a multitude of things, but the main topic is Wilder Ortiz pay-per-view, and what's the truth to the numbers? We've seen so many internet rumors. Where do you think this pay-per-view comes in at, and do you think a number's released to the public?
I don't know. I'll tell you the truth. I don't even give it any thought, to tell you the truth, honestly. Now that you're bringing it up to me, it's the first time I'm actually giving it thought. I didn't even really think to wonder how many pay-per-views it sold or not. I just kind of watched the fight, and I actually watched it over in Italy, so I don't know. And we didn't even get it in Italy, I had to wait till the next morning till it came on YouTube, because in Italy we have Dazn, but there was no international link to the Fox broadcast, so I couldn't even get the fight. So that night I ended up watching the Callum Smith and John Ryder fight, and I had to wait till the next morning to catch the international broadcast of the Wilder Ortiz fight on YouTube. So I forgot that it was even a pay-per-view, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You caught me off guard with that question, man. I really hadn't even given it any thought until this moment.
No problem. And Bob Arum seems to think that the rematch between Wilder and Fury is going to do 2 million pay-per-view buys, co-broadcasted with Fox, allegedly, and ESPN. Because obviously Showtime might want it.
Well, I think, listen, I think 2 million would be a great number for the fight. I think the fight deserves 2 million, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think, again, I'll say it again, I think they are, bar none, the two best heavyweights in the world at the moment, So I think the fight does deserve 2 million views, but I would say it probably comes in between 1 and 1.5 if I had to try to predict 1 and 1.5 on the U.S. level. Then I don't know about the rest of the world, But U.S. pay-per-views, I think between 1 and 1.5. If it does 2, I mean, it's more than deserving of it. But for me, it should do as many as possible, because I think it's a terrific fight. But if I had to predict it, I'd say between 1 and 1.5, I guess.
Bob also stated that looking over at the PBC side, Errol Spence is hurt right now, and Sean Porter is probably the best opponent over there for him, so he might be making a call to Al for Sean. So how would you see that fight playing out?
Which fight? Porter and who?
Porter and Terrence Crawford.
Oh man, that's a tricky one for Crawford. I'll tell you, because Porter's a very physical guy. And again, I love the ability Terrence Crawford has. I think he's a terrific boxer, and I think he's very, very multifaceted. But Sean Porter does some good things in that he eliminates all that talent out of the fight when you fight him. He just makes it a junkyard dog type of fight. It's a physical, rough and rugged, rough and rowdy type of fight. And all that talent that you have, all that speed and sense of timing you have, he's kind of able to throw it out the window, I was a former light welterweight that fought Porter, and I had a lot of trouble with his physical prowess. And I can only tell you that, Crawford is a former lightweight, so he's smaller than me. I mean, I think Crawford's ability, obviously, I'm going to tell you it tops mine. He's a great fighter, timing-wise and ability-wise, lefty and righty, but once you make it a very physical fight with a naturally bigger guy like that, is all that going to get thrown out the window? I don't know. It's an interesting fight, but I think it's a fight that really tests Crawford. And I think Porter's would end up coming in as a very, very live underdog in that fight, you know? And not to say Crawford doesn't have advantages in the fight as well, because I noticed body shots do slow down Sean, and Terrence is very sneaky to the body. But then again, so was Errol, you know, and still that fight was tooth and nail, you know, for a tooth and nail. So I don't know. I question Bob's legitimacy there and really wanting to make that fight. I don't know. I would be very surprised. I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. I think it's great to talk about if you're promoting Terrence Crawford, but I don't know if you're promoting Terrence Crawford if you want that Sean Porter fight. I'll be honest.
All right, Paulie. So we got some questions from the people before we run out of time. But before we get to that, we do want your AJ Ruiz 2 breakdown. The fight is in Saudi Arabia. What people might not know is that AJ, since landing, has been training in an outdoor ring where Andy's training indoor. Keith Idek is reporting it's going to be like 50 degrees for the fight. Does any of that matter? And what's Paulie Malignaggi's breakdown of this fight?
Honestly, 50 degrees, I mean, you know, they'll probably be a little cold, but once they get in there, I think it'll be fine, you know? Actually, I think that's better in the long run because, you know, they won't overheat, you know? They'll keep cool. But I don't know. I see a very focused Anthony Joshua. I see a very mean Anthony Joshua right now. And not to say that Ruiz ain't mean, because we obviously saw behind that smile there's a sinister guy in Ruiz who wants to take your head off, you know? But if I had to predict it, I'd probably go with Joshua in the rematch in a fight where both guys are going to show their ability to make adjustments and be good fighters. But I also think AJ comes in with a more careful approach. I don't think he just comes in and bombs away.
And the only reason that you're not working that fight is because Showtime has the Charlo and a Hogan, right, that night.
Yeah. I was called by Sky Sports. I was called by Sky Sports to work in Saudi Arabia, but I have to work the Charlo Hogan fight.
Damn, you didn't feel like there was nothing you can do? Your agent, like you didn't think that was a part of history? You wanted to be there?
Priority, man. Showtime take priority.
Yeah, Showtime, exactly. I have a contract with Showtime to take priority. And to tell you the truth, man, I'm at the point where, you know, we missed out on a lot of fights this year at Showtime. So, you know what, I'm not really going to tell you, like, oh, it's a part of history. Bro, if you're paying me and I have my contract with you, that's what I'm loyal to. You know what I'm saying? And my loyalty is to Showtime. They've treated me well through the years. They've dealt with my shit because, you know, dealing with me is not always easy. And, you know, wherever they go, I'm here, you know. But, of course, even if that was not the case, I have a contract with Showtime. And even if I wanted to go to Saudi Arabia, I could not go to Saudi Arabia.
All right. Well, speaking of you, our mastermind, Joseph, wants to know, Paulie, what's up with your podcast? I was an avid listener. It was great meeting you at the Spence versus Campo. Tell Ness to get Peter on the show.
We were doing it. Me and Peter through Showtime. We were doing it again. We brought it back this year, but I don't think anybody knew it existed. I don't know if the marketing wasn't good or whatever, but
I knew it existed.
It just didn't.
We need the rant episodes back, Paulie. That's what we need.
Yeah, I honestly thought that, you know, how we originally did it in the beginning was our best method to do it. I think there's a window for us to do stuff, but it's just like, you know, like Showtime was paying us, so we kind of had to do it the way Showtime wanted to do it. But then Showtime wasn't really marketing it either, you know. So it was like it got kind of weird because like it was like I feel like nobody was listening to it when we brought it back, and people were always asking, you know, where's your podcast? And I'm like, I'm doing my podcast, you know. So I think now I don't know what we're gonna do, but I think Showtime told us that they're kind of done with it. So I don't know if we're gonna bring it back under a different name next year or whatever. But
well, as a fan, I would hope y'all go back to the original format, Paulie.
Yeah, we had a lot of people. Like, we had like celebrities like tweeting us when we were doing the original format. Like it was like picking up steam. Like I'll tell you, like a lot of people were into it. Then I don't know. I you know, we gotta think about it. I guess we'll see.
Hey, are you gonna fight Jason McKnight? I've seen him calling you out and shit.
I don't know if somebody puts up money for it, I'll do it. I have no problem doing that. For me, it's just I'm not yet 40 years old, but I'm 39, so I'm kind of not the youngest guy in the world. But I think until I'm 40, I'll consider certain situations if they're right. I think after I'm 40, even if the situation is right, I probably won't even consider it anymore. But until I'm 40, if something presents itself that is this sort of tickles my fancy, I'll consider it. I'm not. I know I'm not. I don't have the ability to compete to be, on the championship level anymore. I'm a realist, but at the same time, if there's like little kind of novelty kind of fights like this, or like the wall ball fight that I did, and they pay and people are willing to be interested in them, why not?
All right, we got another one from Rod in the A70. Says, I think you're the best boxing analyst out there, but does seem as if you go over the top to criticize Wilder and Canelo. Why?
Only if you're a Wilder and Canelo fan and you have that bias. I don't really go out of my way to criticize anybody. I just kind of call it how it is. I mean, if you don't think what I've said about Wilder and Canelo is true, then you're probably homering it a bit too much. All I said about Canelo was I wasn't really a fan of him doping and then getting the big contract as a reward, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then with Wilder, I don't think there's a sane person on this planet that thinks he won the Fury fight, or even that was a draw. I mean, if you're not sane, sure, you can think what you want, but at the end of the day, I don't think I'm out of line to say that. I think I would go out of my way to have protected Wilder had he been robbed and had it been the other way around. I just want the right thing to happen because I think, fighters should be treated the right way with results for sure. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really think so. I'm not really down with the homeboy in it, with the homer in it, whatever it's called, whatever you want, homer in it for like the favorite guy or like the guy everybody wants to win. Like I'm not really down with homer in it, like whatever the result is, let the sport decide, and that's it. We can always do a rematch. The funny thing about the Wilder Fury fight was that had Fury been given that decision, they would have had the immediate rematch because Wilder had a rematch clause. The reason all this happened was because they robbed Fury in the first place and allowed all this mayhem to happen where this guy was able to sign with a new promoter and dictate more terms and whatnot. Had they given him the decision in the first place, that rematch would have happened 6 months later because contractually it was obligated. So when you do right, I think you get right. But I don't know. I don't think anything I criticize is going out of my way. I think it's more, I kind of call it like I see it. And, in this world, even since I'm a kid, people have told me this, when you speak the truth, you're going to offend a lot of people. And sometimes, for me, that's my truth. It's the way I see things.
All right, we got 7 in Cali says, are you concerned that the cut above Fury's eye wouldn't be 100% by February 22nd or even fully healed to spar properly, for Fury and Wilder fight?
If I'm honest, I don't think that fight happens in February. I never thought that fight happened in February. I think it's probably going to happen like March or April, even May. Like I just don't think there's enough time not only to heal the cut, even besides healing the cut, even if that cut hadn't happened, I just don't think there's enough time to market it properly. That's a fight you really want to get behind the marketing of it and really push it the right way and the way it should be pushed, and the way it's deserving of the way it should be pushed. But I don't think there's enough time to do that. Especially you're gonna have the holidays right now where nobody's paying attention to anything. Then you're gonna have the new year. You're gonna have to make a rush promotion when these guys are already in training camp trying to train. I just don't think there's any possible way that fight happens in February. I always doubted it, and the cut only makes it more emphatic to me that it's not going to happen in February. But we'll see. I mean, don't take my word for it. That's just my opinion, the way I'm seeing it.
Have you separated with Showtime? Haven't heard you on Showbox since bare knuckle fights, but you just answered saying you're contracted with them. I just want to make sure to give them a shout out. Next one is from
I don't work the Showbox fights. I only work the championship shows.
All right. L-Dog in New Zealand. What's good, Paulie? Who is the most skillful fighter in the world today in your eyes of the Magic Man, in the eyes of the Magic Man?
The most skilled fighter right now, and that's not to say that I think for sure he's pound for pound, but the most skilled guys, I think it's between Crawford and Lomachenko to me.
I wish there was more time to debate with this Loma thing, but Jordan Baker in Florida. You are very credible, but sometimes it seems like you have a little anger towards Wilder. Is it because of his style? He does a lot of good things, and you don't let that be known or give him credit. Seems like you don't really critique AJ about nothing.
No, I think the only time I started really criticizing Wilder was the Fury fight. I mean, and if you don't, I think you need a new pair of glasses if you think you won the fight or you don't think you lost the fight. You know, aside from that, before that fight, I never criticized Wilder. I criticized the officiating in the Ortiz first fight because I thought they gave Wilder too much time to recover. And again, I'm the kind of guy that I want the sport to decide the result. I don't want the politics to decide the result. You know, I think you know, if you can make safety a priority, but when a KO ends the fight, you know, we saw that happen to Gerald McClellan and Nigel Benn, where Ben was given so much time to recover from the first round knockdown, and then look what happened in the end. So the whole safety priority thing is bullshit because ending the fight is probably the most safe thing to do. So if there's a critique in that fight, it was probably for the officiating, it wasn't for Wilder. And then the Fury fight wasn't really. Well, again, I mean, what do you want me to tell you? You want me to tell you that I agree with the decision? I mean, I got to be mentally retarded if I agree with that decision, you know? I mean, you got to be mentally retarded if you agree with that decision, you know? So at the end of the day, I don't think I ever criticized Wilder before the Fury fight. I actually still think Wilder's one of the best fighters in the world. Again, I rate him as one of the top two heavyweights in the world, and bar none, you know? So I don't think there's an argument to be made as far as, you know, the 1-2 heavyweights in the world are Fury and Wilder. So I actually rate Wilder very high, but at the same time, I will call a spade a spade.
I wanted to stay on topic, Paulie, but obviously with the way you're speaking, I'm wondering, is there any concern on your behalf? Have you been reached out by Showtime? Because I know Wilder has been vocal about, you know, his feelings towards you since that fight. So I don't know if the way you're speaking is gonna land Showtime that fight. Do you think that you know that could be like maybe a reason why he said, "I'm not going there. I'm not gonna get a fair shake" in his eyes? Because in his eyes, I've heard the interviews. I've asked him the questions. Like he just thinks you're wrong.
You know, and again, I mean, I think Wilder's a tremendous fighter. I just don't. Again, me thinking he didn't win the Fury fight or what the fight wasn't a draw doesn't mean that I don't think he's a tremendous fighter. Again, it's just, bro. What am I gonna do? Lie to you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can only be me, bro. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
and I'm just
I can only
asking,
be me.
And I'm just asking, is there any concern that maybe, you know, because he's done interviews where he's like, oh, he basically talked about you when he says the commentator's telling the audience something, you know. So I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to get some clarity.
Yeah, he said that the only reason the audience thought that he lost the fight was because of what I said. But I only work for the American broadcast. I only work for Showtime. I don't work for the whole worldwide broadcast. Nobody outside of the U.S. thought he won that fight. So how did I influence anybody? If anything, you only had a certain few Americans that thought he won the fight. I have yet to meet a foreign person that thinks he won that fight, or that thinks he didn't lose that fight. So I'm not sure how that opinion kind of makes any sense, you know?
For sure. Next one is Eddie Bola de Grasa Navarez in Las Vegas. What up, Paulie? I heard someone mention that there was going to be a documentary made about the sparring session with you and McGregor. Is that still being made?
The fucking gullible bastard. Can I curse on you?
Of course. Podcast.
Really? No.
We just live.
The fact that it's been 2.5 years, and you still have these gullible ass stupid motherfuckers that we shouldn't even acknowledge these questions. Like a documentary on the sparring? Who the fuck is gonna buy a documentary on the sparring? Who the fuck cares about the sparring? At this point, the whole world of common sense knows the guy lied about it. Who the fuck? You think anybody's gonna put money into a documentary? Can you imagine that question? Can you imagine that opinion? Can you imagine the fact that when it was said that people bought into it? Can you imagine that? Like, that there's people this fucking stupid in this world. A sparring session is going to get a documentary. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I can't imagine. I can't even imagine that these questions are still coming out.
I mean, I guess there's interest in that fight with you and McGregor.
Yeah, of course there's interest. Of course. You know what? And God bless. I hope everybody gets to see it. I mean, I'm the first one that tells you I hope everybody gets to see it. But a documentary, when they have the footage, who the fuck is a documentary going to benefit? It's only going to benefit me, because if you see the sparring, you're going to see him get his ass kicked. So, how are you going to get a documentary when they have the footage? First of all, not to mention, even if they were going to release it, who's going to buy a documentary on sparring? Who actually does that? Like it doesn't make sense on so many levels. That question, and not to, the fact that anybody ever believed it never makes sense on any level. But it is what it is.
All right, we got Tracy says, are you taking Wilder over Fury this fight? If not, explain why.
I don't really have a prediction for it. I just want to see some adjustments made. I think both guys have to make adjustments. I think there's a few key adjustments Wilder has to make. I think in the Ortiz fight he made some good adjustments. He was losing the fight, so it wasn't the adjustments I was looking for. But at the same time, he made adjustments that I also didn't take note of. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm watching the fight, I'm like, wow, he's not winning this fight, but his positioning is really good. Like I could never have predicted that in a fight where he'd be behind, he'd have such a good sense of positioning in the Ortiz fight, during the Ortiz fight, So, and eventually that good sense of positioning landed him the knockout. So like, I can't tell you, like, what I'm looking for Wilder to do, because he may do something that ends up being very well anyway. Again, it surprised me, but then doesn't surprise me. You know what I mean? Because he was losing the Ortiz fight, but the adjustment was made. It was just a different kind of adjustment. Because again, like I said, I would not have been able. If you told me before the fight he's going to be losing almost every round, but his sense of positioning is never going to be in danger. His sense of positioning is never going to put him in a real at-risk position. I would not have believed you. I would say if he's going to be losing every round, he's probably going to be losing positioning a lot. But somehow his positioning was very good, yet he wasn't probably busy enough with the jab to be winning the round, to be busy enough. But in the end, he got the job done. And like I said, he never not looked confident to me, because I kind of read body language a lot too. He always looked confident in that fight. Like you could never tell looking at his body language that this guy's behind in the fight. Like it's almost like he knew it was just. It's almost like he knew it was just a matter of time.
We going off topic again, because I feel like I love to read body language. What was your thoughts of that gloves is off when Andy Ruiz told AJ to his face, I think you quit? I mean, his face said a million things to me.
He did, yeah. He told him, but he told him, and it wasn't as mean as it looked in the commercial. Like, because then he's like, he kind of made an excuse for him too. Like he's like, yeah, he didn't know where he was, so yeah, he quit, but he didn't know where. Like he kind of gave him an out, So
yeah, but what about AJ?
Yeah, you quit.
But what about AJ's body language when he said that?
Yeah, of course, AJ's going to be uncomfortable because, this is why I feel like AJ's in such a mean position right now. Joshua's being so mean right now, and it looks like his game face is twofold because the reality of it is he wants to prove to people that not only is he not a quitter, but he's a very good fighter, that he's the fighter that everybody was hyping him to be. But so he's got that extra chip on his shoulder going into this second fight. But I also think Ruiz saying it is being taken out of context, because it could have been much more cold-blooded than it was. Like, Ruiz still has that nice guy persona outside the ring. I don't think AJ's going to fall for it this time, but it wasn't as cold-blooded as, like, looking him dead in his eye and say, yeah, bro, you quit. Yeah, yep, you definitely quit. It was more like, yeah, you quit, but it's because you weren't in it and you were kind of out of it. And, he gave him a back door out of it. You know what I'm saying?
So would you have liked to see Ruiz kind of stick it to him and say, man, you quit? Like, keep it more gully?
It would have been interesting, right? It would have been interesting. It would have really been interesting. I would have loved to see that, but just to see how the conversation would have went from there. But now that makes me question Ruiz. Is he, like, nervous to, like, piss him off too much? You know what I'm saying? Like, why didn't he? Because at this point, your whole nice guy attitude, the cat's out of the bag. You might be a nice guy, but we know on fight night you show up. And AJ knows on fight night you show up. So the whole nice guy thing, maybe the first time around, it suckered everybody. But the second time around, you really don't have a reason to use it, because nobody's going to fall for it, especially AJ. So, like, it makes me question Ruiz now and say, like, was he scared to piss AJ off? Like, why didn't he just stick it to him there? Because that was a perfect opportunity to say it how he wanted. Instead, he said it, but then he made it like kind of nice, so it kind of puts the psychological aspect back on Ruiz. No, I mean, That's how I read it a little bit. Like, I don't know how you guys read it, but that's just on an opinion basis.
All right. The next one is from Matt in Texas. He says, in your opinion, who's the face of boxing?
I don't know, probably Canelo. Okay. You know, I think the face of boxing is somebody that even non-boxing fans can think of when you mention the word boxing. And I think at the moment, I think it's Canelo. You know, in a weird, fucked up way, I think it's still Mayweather too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still think when you say the word boxing, there's a lot of people that think Mayweather instead of anybody else who's actually active. You know, I think that's what's crazy.
We got that one white boy in Texas says, yo, Paulie, you think AB will actually come back? And if so, would you come out of retirement for the second fight with him? Much love and respect. I love your commentating. And now this is me adding, I thought you won the first fight. I love that you went on your rant, and then that's when, you know, I'm from the outside looking in, because I don't know if my next statement is true, but from the outside looking in, after your rant, it's like, boom, life changed for Paulie Malignaggi, you know? You started getting Al on your team, you had the Showtime deal, and you just like, I feel like you blew up. I mean, you might feel like you were already huge, I don't know, but tell us.
I feel like the rematch was an opportunity lost. I think if you make that immediate rematch 6 months later, you probably set up a trilogy that people will talk about in the classic sense of the word in terms of rivalry and boxing trilogies, you know? I really think so. I think they dropped the ball like a motherfucker on that. And unfortunately, the ball was dropped on something that had to do with my career. That's just my luck. That's just the luck I got to have, you know? Because I really think the promotion was unbelievable in the first fight. Like, when I look back on it, it's like, yo, that was a fun promotion. In a promotion that I really, in my 30s, I didn't think I was able to have that much fun in a promotion. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, 'cause he's very witty, I'm very witty, and it was just like people were getting into it. And obviously, yeah, it got a little personal and whatnot, but it was just, and then it was just, the table was set for the rematch. I mean, we kind of left off, like, not really getting along after the fight. Like, people kind of wanting to get more answers because the decision was kind of controversial. So, like, I mean, you had the table set so perfectly for a rematch. Only a moron wouldn't have made the rematch, you know? But, hey, that's my luck, you know? Because I think if you made that rematch at that time, you know, it was a big deal because you also have the welterweight championship of the world on the line, you know? Like, what's the point of a rematch now? What am I going to do, come back at 40 years old and fight AB who's coming off losses? I'm retired and coming off losses. Like, is it really the same thing? I mean, I think it's worse than, like, I think if you do a rematch now, it's worse than, like, Leonard Duran 3. Like, people talk about Leonard Duran 3, like, oh, why did they even do that fight? That was ridiculous. Like,
Paulie, no, you're selling yourself short. Let me tell you, Humberto Soto made a comeback versus Jesse Vargas this year. Like, you kidding me? You and Brona, shit, DAZN might pay big money for that. They just gave money to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., bro. You kidding me? No way. You're selling yourself short. Bro, no, I'm telling you.
You know, I just think that the time for that was so perfect 6 months after that fight. I just think it was you had a ready-made promotion. You didn't even have to do anything. You just had to sign the contracts and you just had to light the match and it would have went off again, you know? And then you would have set up a big promotion on fight night. And I think I would have won the rematch and set up a third fight. We would have had a trilogy. And you could have probably made the third fight on pay-per-view because by that point we would have built up so much momentum that the third fight could have probably wound up on pay-per-view, you know? Again, the ball was dropped, I thought, opportunity lost, but hey, you know, that's boxing. That's the way it goes sometimes, you know, that's the way life goes sometimes. And you know, they say life's not fair, but, you know, I had my fair share of good moments as well. And, you know, I'm all's well that ends well, like I said earlier in the interview, and I'm doing okay. So that's all I could be thankful for that instead of thinking about the things that didn't work out for me.
Hey, two fighters that'll be fighting on the Showtime card. They've been going back and forth in the media. Chris Eubank Jr. and Jamal Charlo. How big of a fight can that be, and who do you have given the edge to right now?
I would give the edge to Charlo right now. But at the same time, I think Eubank can be a dangerous fighter. He's mentally very strong. He's got good power. The only thing people are kind of forgetting about is Matt Korobov can fight, guys. Like, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Eubank beats Matt Korobov. Like, this guy Korobov is constantly being like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he's being undersold consistently. Like, this guy can fight, you know? So I'm not sure, you know, of the result between Korobov and Eubank, if I'm really honest with you. But either guy, whoever comes out the winner of that fight, I would love to see against Jamal Charlo, because the Korobov-Charlo fight the first time around was a very good fight.
All right, back to the people. This is one that you don't have to answer. Like I said, just want to give him a shout out from Long Island. Dr. Mofongo says, how did you score the Wilder Fury fight, and how do you see the rematch going, given that the first was a classic boxer versus puncher? But you basically answered that in tenfold. Brandon in Cincinnati says, please go to Fox, Paulie. Their commentary team needs you.
Hey man, like I said, I said that earlier in the broadcast. Showtime has given me my entrance into this business, and they've dealt with my shit too. You know what I'm saying? Like I think some of the situations that I've put myself in the years that I've been broadcasting, there might be networks, you know, corporate. I'm not really built for corporate America. You know what I mean? So there might have been networks that might have got rid of me. With some of the antics that I've pulled through the years. And Showtime, although not been happy, and although they've sat me down and told me, like, yo, cut it out, they've always kept me. And I have to say that loyalty means a lot to me, you know? So you know, as long as they keep me working, which I hope they do next year, you know, I think we pick up a few more dates, I'll you know, my loyalty's to them.
Well, if they exit the boxing business, man, call Eddie. They need you on DAZN as well. We got Patrick in Beantown. What would your pound-for-pound list look like?
Again, pound-for-pound is very subjective. I'm not quite sure. You know, I never really give a lot of thought to pound-for-pound lists, because there's no right and wrong answer to them, you know, so you can kind of say it how you want to say it, and you have an argument to make for any time.
No problem. We got Salvador in Alabama. Who's better, Canelo or Crawford?
Skill-wise, pound for pound, I'd say Crawford, but obviously both are world class.
All right. We got Rue in the 504. Does boxing maintain the momentum going into 2020, or does the business of the sport kill it?
The business is always giving it high blood pressure and keeping it unhealthy, but at the same time, it's such a dynamic sport that with you know, a number of dynamic personalities and dynamic fighters, that in the sport of boxing will be okay.
Eric Cruz in Texas, the preacher's son. Paulie.
One sec, guys. One sec, guys. One sec.
No problem.
Yes, man. Did you? Was your face on the screen when he said that?
Nah, I ain't been showing me.
Oh, man.
Let me show us now. There you go.
I should have seen that face.
Yo,
all right. He's back. Eric Cruz wants to know, Paulie, how you learned Spanish, but Canelo can't learn English.
I learned Spanish because I'm fluent in Italian, and 20 years in the boxing gym in the Northeast with a lot of Latinos in there. A lot of the fighters that don't speak English, you kind of pick it up little by little. And a lot of that reason is because a lot of the words are similar to Italian. And of course, you know, in a very competitive gym where guys are talking shit while you're sparring and whatnot, you learn to pick up little things, and then you pick up little things outside the ring when you're conversing with the guys, and so on and so forth. And then, you know, in 20 years, you're going to pick up a lot if you already speak a Latin language, a Latin-based language, which Italian is.
Only 4 more, Paulie, unless you got to go.
No, I got time.
Perfect. You're the best. We got Jacob. Don't know where he's from, but he says, with AJ losing 15 pounds of muscle, do you expect it? Do you expect it to affect him similarly to Roy Jones versus Tarver?
I don't know, because with Roy Jones versus Tarver, Roy had to make a weight. You know, like, so it was like, I think he went beyond what he was healthy at, you know. I don't think AJ doesn't have to make a certain weight, so I don't think it's the same thing. You know, like, AJ can just get himself down to a weight that he's comfortable at and feels good. So I wouldn't make the same comparison, but of course it'll be you know, interesting to see how he fights at that new weight, or if he's more nimble and whatnot.
Caesar in Las Vegas. Hope all is well, Mr. Malignaggi. Just wanted to ask, what do you think about AJ saying he does not want to entertain any Wilder talk, even if he beats Ruiz?
I just think that's his way of focusing on Ruiz. I think afterwards he might, change his approach. We'll see.
He said, you had Fury up 5. Let me see. Wait a minute. Let me make sure. We already asked this question. There's only one per page. And we got Jordan Baker wants to know, Ness asks about how he feels about Dillian White fighting before his steroid stuff got cleared up with UCAD.
I don't know. That's a weird situation there, because from one side he was clean, from one side he was dirty. I don't know if it was low levels. It's just so confusing to me at this point that, like I said, I'm done criticizing guys for doping because so many guys dope that I don't know. I feel like even guys that don't want to dope at this point have to dope in order to survive in this business. Otherwise, they're going to get themselves hurt. And it's a shame. I think low-key that's also part of the reason some of the deaths are happening and some of the reason why, it's getting less and less safe to do this because, you're not going to – it's almost impossible to catch a guy doping. You catch one once in a while, but – in comparison to the amount of doping that's going on in the sport in comparison to what's being caught, it's a very low percentage. So I think low key, some of these deaths might have that as one of the as one of the reasons as well. But we can't put it on them for sure. So I just think like you should just make the sport as safe as possible and control doping for one. But if you're not going to, I can't really criticize these guys for doping anymore. I would love to, and I think that the only thing you can do at this point is stop watching the sport if you don't like it. But I'm involved in the sport. I make my money in the sport, so it's kind of I got to make my living too.
Okay, Paulie, I got one more question for you. If this is hypothetical, but if they're both at 100%, who wins when Spence and Crawford meet finally?
If they're both at 100%, I still think Spence because I think the weight matters. Like I said, I think earlier in the conversation we had, I think the Porter fight's very dangerous for Crawford. The naturally bigger guy to me has so many advantages. Like I've been in the ring and I both sparring and in competitive fights. I understand how weight classes matter. What I don't understand is obviously how doping affects these weight classes to the point where they stop mattering. Because I'm not doped, I can't tell you how that is. So that always confuses me. But I come from a world where, at one time, you notice most of the time weight classes do matter. And even if you were going to be successful at a higher weight class, you have to be very cunning and very deceitful and very, very shrewd in there, But I will always go with the bigger guy most of the time, But Crawford is crafty enough to make it good, Like Crawford definitely has that craftiness. Where, he can be crafty enough to outmaneuver a bigger guy. It's just can he outmaneuver the best of the bigger guys? Like usually when you guys go up in weight, like I said, it's more so calculated risks. They're picking up a risk because they're fighting a bigger guy, but maybe they're picking up a guy who's lacking in some departments so that they can outmaneuver him and be more shrewd than him. But with Crawford going up against Spence at welterweight, and this is Crawford who's obviously had success at welterweight, even in the Horns fight, who was a very physical welterweight himself. It still makes you start to think, this is the best welterweight he's fighting, the biggest, baddest welterweight he's fighting. So it's hard for me to see how he can be successful, even if I think skill-wise he's more skillful than Errol Spence.
Floyd Mayweather came out on his IG and said he's going to return in 2020. Now, if he does return, is the Manny Pacquiao fight something that you'll be intrigued by watching? And if so, do you see anything different happen in the second fight than happened in the first fight?
I think this conversation is just like people are really, really gullible. I think it's very obvious what he's doing. In doing a deal with Dana White, he's just going to fight UFC fighters, in boxing matches. I don't think a guy who's coming back at 43 years old is going to start taking on the biggest, baddest guys out there. A guy at 43 years old is going to take even more calculated risks, and this is a genius calculated risk because it's gonna really market you to a crowd of people that know about you but don't know about you firsthand, and you're going to start beating on all their stars in your own sport, not their sport. So I think it's going to create a big interest, a big selling point, and it's going to make a lot of money for him, while at the same time, these are calculated risks. An older guy is always at risk when he's fighting, but of course, he's a much more skilled guy in his own sport than are these MMA fighters, who obviously would be more skilled in their own sport, but it's not their sport. So I don't think there's going to be a big name boxer that fights Floyd Mayweather in this comeback, or so to speak. I think it's going to be it's a genius marketing plan, and I think everybody's going to follow it and everybody's going to tune into it. But I think it's mainly going to be Floyd against MMA fighters. That's just my opinion.
Let me jump in there. So you think it's real? I thought it was like some Wilder shade, right? Because Wilder had came out, done an interview, basically saying like, Floyd era's done. He's a hater. He don't ever want to pass the torch to nobody. I don't need nobody to pass it. I could take it. I'm the baddest man. And then all of a sudden, Floyd comes out next day, I'm coming out of retirement. So I put it together like that.
Yeah, you might have a good point there too. I hadn't even paid attention to that. But I think that it could be that, or if it does come out, it's still a calculated risk. Like I said, at the most he'll fight MMA fighters. At the least, it's what you said.
Is everyone done? Okay.
Yeah, I got one more. When is the next Ultimate Boxer, and how successful has it been in his first year?
It's been very successful. We even got our new TV contract with BT in England. People are really drawn to it. It's exciting.
Okay.
You don't have to really be a boxing fan, because it's just 3 rounds of all out action and all out assault. Because guys don't have a feel out process. If they want to advance, and these are hungry guys who have not made any kind of money yet. So they want to advance and make that paper. They got to fight, so you eliminate the feel-out process, and the feel-out process typically is something only boxing fans understand, A person who doesn't understand boxing doesn't understand the feel-out process, nor do they want to see the feel-out process. So this kind of setup can attract both boxing fans who understand it, plus non-boxing fans who, it cuts the fat and just goes right to the action, and I think that's what we've gotten in our first year with it. It's gained a lot of traction. Our next show is December 13th. And it's our first heavyweight show, so I think the big boys being forced to fight, not being able to lay all over each other like some of these fat couple-lard heavyweights end up doing sometimes, where they make for boring fights. They're not going to be able to do that. They're going to have to go all out in those 3 rounds. So I think you're going to see more knockouts. You tend to see good action fights. In my opinion, we've yet to have a disappointing night at Ultimate Boxer. Every time I've worked an Ultimate Boxer show, it's crazy. Like the amount of crazy action and crazy things that happen and crazy knockouts that happen. So I think it's only going to continue.
Has there been any talks about bringing it to America?
They want to. There's some meetings set up. They want to, and hopefully the American crowd is drawn to it as well. The American TV networks are drawn to it. There are some meetings set up, though. I talked to the president of the company, Ben Shalom, and he's kind of intrigued with bringing it to overseas and bringing it to other countries, and he's got his eye on speaking to some American networks as well.
Well, I'm not getting a check from Dazn, but they seem to be paying YouTubers to fight. So if you could bring some real fights, maybe they'll be interested in cutting you that check. But Paulie, we want to thank you for your time. As always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking out the time to come on the show and give us this opportunity to talk a little bit of boxing with you. If you want to give out any social media at this time, please do so. And thanks again. Thank you.
Nah, I'm at Paulie Malignaggi on Instagram and Twitter. That's about it. You hit me up.
All right.
Thank you again, Paulie. Say hello to Peter for us.
Yes, sir.
We will. All right. Later, brother. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Paulie Malignaggi, another fantastic episode. Really some great, big, high-level guests. Want to thank everyone that came on the show. Paulie Malignaggi,